My name is Brent Kosniska. I'm a marketing product specialist for the Gleaner Combine, and today we are going to talk about the benefits and some of the risks of running double crop soybeans. Now, some of the benefits include that you're getting an extra revenue on the same field that year. You're running a wheat crop, and then you're going to include a double crop soybean to harvest in the fall. With wheat crops and prices being so low today, this is also a hedge against that lower crop price in the wheat market. We're also spreading that risk. Harvest is a very risky business, and being able to spread some of that risk out across multiple crops is really a benefit for most growers. The last benefit I'll share with you is the fact that you're getting a mid-season cash from a spring crop. Now, let's look at some of the risk included with growing double crop soybeans. Now, the first risk is if your wheat crop is slow ripening. That's going to mean that you're going to be harvesting it a little bit later. That double crop soybean is going to get planted into the ground later, and that's going to push back the fall harvest as well. A lot of times during wheat harvest, we pray for dry weather, but if you are in some drought conditions, it does make it tough to get it into the ground. Now, if that double crop soybean ripens late as well, once again, that's going to push back your harvest window and keep you later out in the season when trying to get that double crop bean or corn out of the field. So running a double crop soybean compared to a first planted soybean, you will see a little bit lower yield than what you would on the other crop. Maybe you don't have the combine that's built to manage all these crops and get very high performance across all of those different varieties. Now, this risk doesn't stand alone just for double cropping. This risk is apparent in any operation that's wanting diversification in crops or wants to increase operating efficiency from crop to crop. Now, some designs do very well in corn. They can do a fantastic job of minimizing loss, get a beautiful sample, have very minimal cob breakup, but that same design does not work as well in soybeans. That design can leave with multiple pods in the tank, even some cracks and splits, something that soybean growers are not very fond of. The other thing, some combines are designed great for corn, but they're not designed to run great in small grains. There's a lot of crop changeover that's required in order to get that machine to run at peak performance. Some combines work great in small grains, but when you put them into a large grain crop such as corn, some of the components up front on their design does see a lot of wear, which requires a lot of expense in order to make those repairs. Now, on the competitive design that we had talked about here, one of the things that they do in a soybean crop is with the top of the rotor completely covered and only open on the sides, that soybean or corn will stay in the cage longer than necessary. When this does happen, you're going to see some cracks and splits. Also on the competitive design, wheat threshes and separates unevenly across the shoe. You really don't know where it's going to separate on that rotor. It could be at the front, it could be at the back, it could be at the middle. And it doesn't really lay out even on that shoe as well. So you are left with a decision. Are you going to try to get a clean sample, or are you going to try to minimize your loss? And it's very, very difficult in that design to try to do both. Some pre-threshing and complex feeding systems up front, they can work very well in small grains. They can generate a great clean sample, low loss levels. But once again, when you get into that large grain crop, when you get into corn with very high capacity feeding, a lot of material running through that combine, there is a lot of damage that can occur to some of your components on that machine, and you're going to see a lot of wear on some of those items. One additional item that's very important to our growers when you're looking at double cropping any crop, whether that's soybeans or corn, is compaction. Now, looking at competitive designs, a heavier combine is going to leave more of a compact print on that soil, which really makes no-till crops vulnerable and have more of a disadvantage when looking at trying to no-till those crops into the ground. So what makes a gleaner perform so well against multiple crops and in adverse conditions? The one thing that we can do very well is we get perfect feeding and we get the threshing done very quickly. We have a natural flow feeding system. We don't beat or condense that crop. It naturally feeds in head first into our threshing system, And with our perforated cage completely open around our rotor, once that crop is threshed, it's able to release out of the cage, get down to our cleaning system, so it's a very gentle action on that crop. No matter the crop or the condition, the thresh material always falls at the front of the shoe. As we drop our material out of the rotor, it gets hit by a very slow distribution auger that evens the load out across the width of the shoe. From there, it will drop down into a set of accelerator rolls. Now these accelerator rolls will take that material and it'll shoot it down onto our perforated pan at 4 times the speed of gravity. And the reason we do that at 4 times the speed of gravity is once it hits that pan, we are also hitting it with an air blast. And that air blast will do about 60% of our cleaning of that crop prior to landing down to the cleaning system. This is one of the most efficient designs on the market when looking at handling adverse conditions with a heavy MOG material. The other very important factor that we look at with our Gleaner Combine is our ability to manage our residue. We have the ability to chop with our 24 knife chopper. We also have a stationary knife bed. If a grower or farmer is looking to even get a little bit better chop quality on that residue. And our ability to spread up to 40 feet with this combine really does work very well when looking at a no-till operation. So let's run through a quick scenario of how a double crop soybean starts, beginning with the wheat harvest. Crop number 1 would be a wheat harvest that was planted last year during the fall. Most growers and farmers are wanting to get it harvested as soon as the heads are dry. Once that crop is mature, we want to get out there, we want to get harvesting and get the opportunity to put that soybean in the ground as soon as we can. Most growers like to leave a lot of residue in the ground, so they will cut as high as they can, leaving all that residue in the field, only clipping the heads, which once again, that is an adverse condition for most combines as well. The other opportunity that they look for is to manage their residue. They want to get a nice even spread, a nice fine chop, to make sure that they're not having to cut through a lot of straw when they're double cropping their soybeans or double cropping their corn. The other thing that they want to target is they want to aim for 0 loss. We're able to do this several ways with the Gleaner Combine, from the open perforated cage, from our 2-stage cleaning system with accelerator roll technology on the shoe. But aiming for that 0 loss is imperative when looking at double cropping soybeans or corn. The other thing that is very imperative for these growers is the fact that we do not want to tear up the ground. We want to try to mitigate any risk of having compaction. We want to make sure we do not track up the field. If the conditions are a little wet, we want to make sure that we try to stay out of the field. And a Gleaner does a fantastic job of limiting that compaction. With a lightweight design, with a very nice footprint on the ground, it does a fantastic job of minimizing that compaction. So let's take a look at the double crop soybean harvest. Most growers are going to get in there as soon as they possibly can. Once those pods are mature enough, maybe even a little bit tougher thresh and a little bit greener pod, which can cause some issues for some competitive designs. But they're going to get out there as soon as they possibly can to harvest that crop. We're going to cut as low as we can to the ground. The Dynaflex header does a phenomenal job of contouring to the ground. Most of the adjustments on the fly from the cab, decreasing pressure, adjusting pitch, everything like that can be done from the operator seat, which really is a nice feature for our growers. The other thing that we want to target is very minimal cracks and splits. Once again, we talked about the ability for the Gleaner that once that crop is threshed, to get that separated out of that 360-degree cage, and we're not keeping it in that rotor any longer than we have to. That really does improve our cracks and splits in our sample with this combine. The other thing we want to target is a very clean sample. Now you're running your wheat residue, you're running your double crop soybeans, there's a lot of material coming through this combine. The ability for a Gleaner Combine to take in 60 bushel wheat straw and your 30 bushel, perhaps, double crop soybean and be able to clean it and generate a beautiful sample is very, very impressive that we can do that with this combine. And I know a lot of competitive designs will struggle with that. Now once again, spreading that residue from that soybean crop, very, very important for our no-till growers to manage that residue, to get a nice fine chop and to get a nice even spread. That is something that a Gleaner Combine can do very well. Whether you double crop or not, you still get the benefits of running a Gleaner Combine. You get less time between crops. There's very minimal items that you have to change from crop to crop, you can most times change it in the cab, strictly with settings. There's more options for diversification. A gleaner is fundamentally designed to manage a variety of crops without hardware changeover, concaves, separator grates, anything like that. There's less loss and a cleaner sample with a gleaner. We've talked about the benefits of our cleaning system, the benefits of our cage and how well that works to generate a beautiful sample in the grain tank, while also minimizing those losses out in the field. The other key factor that we look at when running a gleaner combine is the fact that we have less compaction on the ground. This is very, very important for no-till growers. If you're having compacted areas in your field, that's going to reduce your opportunity to do any double cropping, but it's also going to reduce your yields over time. The other important factor with having a lighter weight machine is the fact that we will actually use less fuel. Everything that we've talked about here will put more dollars in your pocket at the end of the day. This whole presentation is not about double cropping. Now, it served its purpose to illustrate our point, and that point is this: a gleaner is fundamentally designed to allow an operation to lower cost of ownership by increasing efficiencies in the harvest season across a multitude of crops with simplified and consistent settings to reach peak performance. Now, your dealers are very excited to spend a little bit of extra time with you to further define the benefits of our gleaner combine and how it could benefit your operation from a field performance standpoint and a cost of ownership standpoint.